On this week's episode of Whitetail Cribs, we're stopping to visit with Keith Snider. Keith is a whitetail fanatic with an impressive collection to match. Join along as he recounts some of his favorite hunting stories from over the years. Also, be sure to watch until the end to see a sneak peek of next week's episode. If you enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's go.
Hell, now don't bite him, Rudy. Hi, I'm Keith Snider. Come on in. My name's Keith Snider. I live here in southeastern Ohio. I've been crazy about whitetails mostly all my life. Started off just with my family, shotgun hunting and things like we all do. We all start off, usually our grandpa, dad, somebody takes us hunting. It was no different for me. It's just, it became more of an obsession, a way of life for me. It was the thing that I looked forward to. It wasn't Christmas, birthdays, or anything like that. It was deer hunting. But I'll tell you a little bit about some of the deer that I've killed. They're all special to me, like, any deer would be if it's your first fork-horn or spike buck. Every deer I've killed special. These are some of the better deer that I've killed. I've killed 13 over 160, 10 over 170, 5 over 180, and 1 over 190. Had a chance at some 200s, but I've noticed in recent years I've become more of a person that grows deer as opposed to people that shoot deer. I enjoy looking at them. My son now has taken up the reins as far as the guy that goes out and harvests the deer. But anyhow, I'll tell you a little bit about some of these deer. Like I say, these are some of the better deer, and I only have room for so many, and these are the ones that I've mounted. The first deer we called Captain Jack. We watched him for 3 years, let him go, and he just wouldn't grow past a 9 point. And where he was at was a dead-end ridge that came out, and he just would not come up out of this bedding area until right at dark. So moved in, got as close as I could to that without bumping him, made sure the wind was right, waited until the perfect time, first time in the stand, ended up shafting him. He's 25 inches wide, 160s class 8-pointer, which is, a great deer. He's got 7-inch bases, and real happy to harvest that animal. The next deer up, we actually called him King and watched him for 3 years also. He was 6.5 when I killed him, and shot him on November 4th. And as most of the time, a girl got him in trouble. So, he was on her tail and chasing her out a big hardwood flat. And I'd got some pictures of him in there working a scrape, and he was just there relentlessly working this scrape. And he ended up going just right at 170 almost as a 10-pointer. My wife, actually, this deer, he was 10.5 years old, and he never grew anything but a freak rack, and she said, boy, I'd really love the chance to hunt that deer. And so as a family, we all went down to a log cabin that I have that's on a pretty nice farm that I acquired a few years ago. And the whole family got in there with only one gun, and it was her. And we spent the whole day. I knew the deer was coming in right before dark, and he ended up showing up at about, I think it was 3:45, 3:45. Come up over the hill, and I said, there he is. And of course, it's my wife, my son, my 2 daughters. We're all sitting in this log cabin. It's just a 12 by 12 cabin with a shooting window out the front. And at 127 yards, she shot that with a .357 Magnum Ruger rifle, which is unbelievable. Deer wasn't that big, bodied wise, but it ended up grossing 148 inches with that freaky rack. The next deer up is my best deer to date. Just had him officially scored. Really never scored many deer. I just thought nets were for fish, so I never really scored them. But had a guy come down, a good friend of mine, Toby Hughes, is a master buckmaster scorer. And then I had another gentleman come over that's a Boone and Crockett scorer. The deer ended up scoring 190 and 1/8. It's got 29-inch main beams, 14-inch G3s, 12-inch G2s, just a tremendous deer. It's got some 6-inch mass measurements. I actually saw that deer for 2 years and couldn't kill him at 26 times I seen him. I could not ever get him killed. And finally, I knew where he was bedding and where he was coming out, and I set up on him, and it was 156 yards. Back then, we wasn't allowed to use straight wall cartridges, so the only option I had was a muzzleloader. So every morning I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would drive down to the range and shine my lights down, and I'd sight my rifle in every morning before I went hunting and made sure it was still on 6 inches high at 100. I knew that would fall right in at about 150. And long story short, third day, daylight to dark, daylight to dark, daylight to dark. He come walking through like he did previous times that I couldn't kill him, because if I went on that side of the hill, the wind blew back in the bedding area and he'd bust me. He come out, ran out. He actually stopped in the honeysuckle, and as he turned to run, I thought, man, he's going to run clear to that thicket, and I got the gun up, and it was an old night rifle, and I screwed the safety almost plumb near off that thing. I thought, God, please don't misfire. And it run through, and I thought, oh my gosh, and I was looking through the scope, my heart was pounding on my chest. I remember thinking, I'm going to have a heart attack before I get this deer shot. And I closed my eyes while he was still standing there looking at me. I remember he was looking at me and he was licking his nose, and I was looking at him through the scope, and I thought, dear God, before I die, just let me shoot this deer. Before I have a heart attack, just let me shoot this deer. And anyhow, he run through this opening, and I'm bleating and bad and yelling and everything else, and he run right through it, right into another honeysuckle thicket, and I was going to be out of my life forever. But he stopped, and the only thing sticking out was right at the back of his rib cage, clear to his face. And I'd seen him 26 times with a bow in my hand. That was the 27th time, and I had that gun off safety. And I remember looking through the scope, and he was looking at me, licking his lips again, and I said, surprise, gun season. Boom, and I shot. Smoke flew, and he run up through there, and I thought I missed, and I'm trying to dump powder in the gun and look where he's running, and his horns got tangled up in vines, and for some reason I thought, my goodness, that thing's it's stuck. Not thinking. And he just jerked his horns out, but he reared up and he fell back on his back. And he got up and he staggered and he went down. And I was trying to hoop and holler, and I just couldn't get nothing out. I was just totally out of air. But the next deer's 169 7/8, missed the bone and crockett by 1/8 of an inch. And that was deer just showed up. We call them bonus bucks. November, we got a lot of deer coming through, and you're watching local deer that live there. And that deer, apparently there was a hot doe. It was November 13th, and he come through, and how do you pass up a 170-inch deer? So I went ahead and shot him, and the rest of the deer got a free pass that year. So he helped everybody out on the farm. The next deer up top was actually the first deer that my wife killed, and it's a 160 10-pointer. And funny story about that deer. The deer comes in. It's coming out of a big acorn flat, and it comes in, and she goes to draw on it and can't get the bow back. And I hate to tell on her here, but she couldn't get the bow back. And I'm sitting in a buddy stand with her, and the deer turns and walks out of her life. And I look, and she's crying, but she's not making no noise, just tears of silence, of pain, I guess. Long story short, the deer turns, and I grunt, and it turns and comes right back in. And I said, get ready. As the deer comes in, she stood up, and she can't draw her bow back. And I reach up with my left hand, put my hand on her hand on the riser. And I said, you ready? The deer puts his head down, he's sniffing in a scrape. And I said, go. And I drawed the bow back for her. And once she got it back, the let off, she could hold it. And I said, take him. And she shot, double lunged him, and the rest is history. The deer underneath of it, I actually shot in 1999. It's 182 4/8, net non-typical. Got 28-inch main beam, 16 points, and he was chasing a doe again. A girl got him in trouble, and I seen that deer 3 times before I got him killed, and real happy with that deer. The deer on top, I shot a lot of these dates I can't remember, but it's a 164-inch 9-pointer, and he was one of the bigger bodied deer that I had ever shot. Field dressed 238 pounds, which is a tremendous whitetail. The deer underneath I'd shot when I was 16 years old, rubbing a telephone pole out in a farm that I grew up on in the western part of Ohio. And he's 170 2/8 as a 10-point. And the back of his brow tine's what's so neat. I went down there and I was looking at this telephone pole, and it was rubbed, and I thought, man, I'm going to hunt here every day. Well, gun season come in, and I just had me an old shotgun, and I went out there and I sat, and nothing come and rub that telephone pole. It's just the way it was. And on Sunday, I'd hunted with people, or Saturday, I'd hunted with people all week, and I thought, I'm going to back that telephone pole. And it was raining to beat the dickens, and I look, as I come around this bend, there's a power line right away. I look, and I see a deer's back. And I thought, oh my my gosh, that's that deer's been rubbing that telephone pole. So I sneaked through the woods, wind's hitting me in the face. And I don't know that much at this point. And I sneaked down there about 65 yards, and I look out there, and I can see the deer's back, but I can't see his head. And I thought, it's the last day of season. I'm going to put some meat in the freezer. So I shoot, and a couple deer run out of there, but it's raining, and all these greenbriers, the water's falling. I can see something kicking over there. I thought, man, maybe I hit that deer. So I walk over there, and there he is laying. And on the back of his brow tines, he had grounded them clear flat, and you can see the pores inside the bone, inside of his brow tines, right where he was rubbing that telephone pole. So that's the telephone pole buck. The other deer was featured in North American Whitetail, and I just had him scored. He's 189 5/8 typical whitetail. And the year before, he was only 148 inches. I found the sheds off of him, and me and my daughter out shed hunting, and killed him the very second day of season. And I remember he came in. I'm sitting in the tree stand. As soon as I seen him, there's like 10 deer around. And as soon as I seen him, he was about 60 yards. And we all get these harebrained ideas, you know. My heart's pounding again. You know, it's such a tremendous deer, and you hunt so hard for these things. And I look out there. The deer's about 70 yards, and I thought, man, I wonder if I could hit that thing 70 yards. But thank gosh, I calmed myself down. I'm looking at him, and I thought, I can't look at him. And I thought, what, man, you're a pro. I'm trying to convince myself that I'm better than what I really am. And I said, yeah, that deer's 140 inches. Why are you getting pumped up like that? Anyway, I turned back to look. I'd calmed myself down. I turned back to look, and he's still staring up there at all these other deer. And as soon as he started walking, I could see him kind of doing that rocking chair looking. I thought, I turned back around, and my heart just started pounding again. I said, what are you, stupid? That deer's way bigger than 140. So anyhow, he circled around, and he wouldn't come in. And there was a deer that when I always went and filled feeders up, I called him Split. And he had split G2s, but he was only a 2-year-old. But he was so tame that when I'd fill up feeders, he would walk down. And he'd just look at me. I mean, 10 yards away, and the wind was blowing like crazy in there, and I thought he's going to win me. All these other deer had ran, but this Split was always with him. And so I'm sitting there in the stand, and the hill rolled up behind me to a big rock bluff, and I hear ch, 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 ch. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get winded. The wind's hitting me right in the face. I turn and look as this deer's walking down, and right when he gets to the stand, he looks up, and it's Split. And I'm just like, Split. And I remember just looking at this deer that's over here that won't come in, and he's looking at Split, and I went like this, just gave Split the thumbs up, and he walked right down, stuck his nose in the feeder, and old big boy come around like I said, hey, how you doing, buddy? Walked around, turned, walked in, 21 yards, double lung. So old Split helped me. I never seen Split again after that. So the other deer is actually a 169 7/8 that I shot on another farm. Shot him the third day of season. Had sheds off of him. And then the deer on the end's a real special deer. It's a deer that my uncle, John Boyce, that was like a father to me. He was with me on that hunt. He's passed away here just a few years ago, cancer, but we spent a lot of hunting time together, and that deer is probably, as far as every deer on the wall, they all mean so much to me, but that's probably my most prized deer that I've harvested myself, just because he was there with me. And that deer was chasing a doe and come running by, and he actually shot over its back. He was in a climber about 20 yards away from me, shot over its back, and it ran up and stopped and looked back, and he was trying to knock an arrow, and I drawed and shot the deer, and he's like, we got him. So that's we got him buck there. That's mine and his deer, and it's a 165-inch 8-point. Then this deer here was a deer that another buddy of mine had told me about, and it's a 162-inch 10-point that's 28 inches wide. It's a deer that pretty special to me. So, but that's some of the nicer deer. But here's some deer that my son has killed. This is my son Dawson, and this is a deer he shot this year. It's a 150 and 2/8 8-pointer, and he can tell you a little bit about that deer.
Alrighty, so I was hunting by myself. I actually killed this buck about 4 days ago. I was sitting in a buddy stand, and these 3 does came in, and they were eating in the corn pile. And as I was watching them, they looked up over in the woods to the right of me, and they started looking real hard, and they like threw their tail up and they ran off. They didn't blow or nothing, so I didn't spook them. But I was sitting there for about a half hour, and I look over to the right and I see a brown body. He's working a scrape, and so I have the binoculars. I'm looking. I'm trying to see if I see a rack or not. As I looked to the right and I was trying to figure out what deer it was, I saw the left side of his antlers come up. And as soon as I saw that left side and that beam that sweeps up, I knew it was him. So I got stood up. He was about 50 yards away at the time. He was working the scrape like crazy, throwing his head up in some trees. And I'm in a buddy stand facing this way, so I got to get completely turned around. And I get drove back on this deer. He's walking like this towards me. And he walks up 10 yards on me. Get a good shot on him. He runs about 30 yards. Me and Dad tracked him and found him. He went 151 inches as an 8-point.
Actually, the biggest bodied deer I think you've shot so far.
Yeah, actually, he was very big bodied. He was 286 pounds on the hoof and 262 pounds field dressed. Very big bodied deer. Getting ready to get him sent out, put on a mount.
Yep. Well, there you go, folks. That's about what it is here. I mean, you know, we enjoy whitetail hunting. It's probably the one thing that we enjoy more than anything. We don't go on trips or anything like that. We're just.
This is our vacation.
Yeah, this is it. This is the time of year that you're lucky you actually caught us today.
Right.
So all day today we've been putting up blinds. So appreciate you guys coming by and hope you enjoyed the stories that we have on our deer, and hopefully we'll have some more next time. Stay tuned for part 2. We got something special to show you.